Hello and welcome to Blockchain Gaming World with me, John Jordan. So the question I'm going to try and answer today is but why blockchain games? The reason it says 3 is this is part of a longer presentation that I gave this week to some students at the Finnish University at Aalto. Probably pronounced that wrong, but it's in Helsinki. Anyway, they were interested in blockchain games, so I gave them a long presentation, and this was kind of one part of it. And I kind of thought of the whole kind of hour and a half presentation that I gave. This is probably the most interesting bit for most people, because I do get this question asked a lot, actually increasingly so. Why blockchain games? So let's try and kind of explain that. Kind of one thing about this is sort of setting the scene a little bit. So we can kind of think about what sort of behaviour we already see in online gaming that blockchain can kind of improve upon, and I think there are other things that blockchain can allows us to do that we can't do without blockchains. But definitely there's this whole idea, and pretty much every online game, I guess most famously started with Warcraft. World of Warcraft, Diablo 2 actually had a big problem as well. But every online game kind of goes through this problem of it has an in-game economy, obviously, and generally there is a in-game currency or a number of in-game currencies that people can access in the game. Different ways of running that, but often there is a currency. In this case, it was World of Warcraft Gold, and obviously you could kind of farm that in the game, and then use that in the game to go off and purchase things. Obviously a long time ago now, over a decade ago. But what kind of happened was clearly you had this currency that was worth a certain amount of money, so people were buying it. But the rate of return in terms of like a fiat currency, like a dollar, was kind of set at the rate of the kind of the kind of developed world, which obviously meant that people who had a lot of time and their jobs were worth a lot. They could only in terms of their salaries, they would get a lot less than they would do if they were in the States or North America. Obviously, then it becomes an opportunity for them to just go, right, I can spend my time doing this very boring thing all day, playing this game, but I'm earning this currency, in this case World of Warcraft Gold, and that World of Warcraft Gold can then be sold at a massive premium to people in the US. And obviously, as with all these things, it's the middleman who sort of takes the makes the money. So all these people in China were playing World of Warcraft like 24/7 to earn some money, but more money than they could make, in China at that time. And then that gold was being sold on to other kind of richer people. Obviously, the problem with that is you get a massive kind of inflationary process where there's loads of much more gold is being produced than the developers kind of think, and it's being sold on. Developer obviously is not getting any cut of that, so Blizzard doesn't get any cut of that. Obviously, it's against Blizzard's terms. They try and shut it all down. So that's a sort of hassle for Blizzard to be trying to shut down all this gold farming legally and within the game. And people are making a load of money off them that they're not getting a cut of. It's unbalancing the game economy. So sort of what ends up is all players end up needing to have to buy gold because you just can't earn enough gold in the game, because the amount of gold in games going up so much that Blizzard's putting in all these very expensive items for people to buy, and so the whole thing becomes a bit of a mess. We have a similar thing now, not so much with currencies, or I'm sure it still is going with currencies, but we have this kind of other thing with any digital items, and we see this is a cheap Fortnite accounts website. It's fairly professional. Obviously, I've not used it. It even has a discount code, 45% discount on orders over $45, secure payment. But basically this is totally legal. So this is people having played Fortnite, acquired items and digital assets in the game, whatever that is, and then obviously you can't sell those individually. There's no marketplace within Fortnite for doing that, so people are selling their entire accounts. It sort of may work in the sense that if you wanted to do this, you may pay $87 and get this account and the email and all the access. But obviously you may pay $67 and not get anything at all, and then obviously who can you complain to? Well, no one, because obviously Epic doesn't like this. Epic's trying to stop this. They're not getting a cut of this. It may even be that you spend $87, sorry, and you get that account, and then Epic works out what's happened and then bans that account because they can see it's been transferred or think it's been transferred. So there is this kind of I think for every online game now there is this sort of grey area, this sort of grey economy where people are trading in-game items in any way they can, even though it's not allowed, it's illegal, and it's certainly a bad user experience, and the developer hates it. So this is one thing that's sort of happening and has been happening for the last decade. So in terms of, if you think about kind of concepts in people's heads, I think gamers already think they own their in-game items and they treat them like real money. Obviously, not everyone is selling Fortnite accounts. It's probably quite a small percentage of people. But even if you're not selling your in-game items, I think people think that they own them in a way that they probably, if they thought about it, they knew that they would know that they wouldn't. But they sort of inherently kind of think, well, I just paid $10 for that or whatever. That's mine. They kind of think there's a moral ownership that they have, even though it's not physical. And certainly for the ones who are selling it around, developers are not very happy about that at all. So there's like a disconnect here between what the gamers want and what the developers want them to do. I think there's a more kind of subtle point maybe about collecting. So collecting, I mean, broadly from my own experience, collecting physical things, was something you sort of did as a kid. There were certain items that when you grew up, you could maybe get away with, maybe collecting kind of stamps, maybe collecting kind of football stickers. There's certain things that you could do. But sort of as you grew up, the assumption was you would sort of grow out of that sort of thing, unless you were a slightly weird individual who collected kind of train numbers or aeroplane numbers or whatever. You've seen it be a little bit eccentric if you were collecting like these ones, collecting look like ashtrays, and that might be seen as odd. I think that has really changed in recent years. So we have this. I mean, this is actually the Guinness Book of Records, the largest collection of interlocking plastic bricks set in a private collection. I mean, it doesn't say Lego, interlocking plastic bricks, but this chap here doesn't look all that happy, does he? But he has an enormous collection of Lego. I mean, maybe he is a bit eccentric. But I don't think lots of people have Lego. Lots of grown-up people who 20 years ago probably wouldn't have had Lego on their mantelpiece or on a shelf. Now would have Millennium Falcon, I guess, is the famous one that people do. So in general, I think as pop culture has become more kind of prevalent throughout society and globally, then kind of a collecting mechanic sort of goes with that, and that's not as weird as collecting having the largest collection of ashtrays in the world. Similar thing, this guy here is apparently, or when this photo was taken at least, has the world's largest collection of Transformer toys. I mean, again, that'd be seen as very, very odd a decade ago, I think. Now, I mean, probably not still seen as maybe very sane, but I guess people would focus on the value of this collection. That would kind of how the thing would go. There would be sort of a financial value in it. And this chap here is collecting Funkos. And Funko, kind of these kind of little vinyl figures are the exact sort of example of this. Is they're not any culture in themselves. They're sort of a meta culture. So you get Funko characters of all these kind of big IPs. There's Asterix and Iron Man, and I probably don't even can't mention half of these. All these typical superheroes you'd expect to see. Some Muppets in there. Are they Sesame Street or Muppets? These big birds. So it's just like really odd. It's sort of meta collecting going on here. And he looks very happy, doesn't he? I'm sure he's a very well balanced chap. So we kind of see these. I think these two things that we have: in-game economies, digital economies that basically everyone's been exploiting now, and assuming is real money. And then we have this idea of kind of collecting as becoming a sort of a thing that people do. I mean, maybe not to this extent of having enormous thousands of items and probably special storage for it, but people do sort of collect these sort of these sort of things. People have certain IP that they like. And obviously we see this in blockchain. So the first example, probably still the best example of this is the NBA Top Shot collectible from Dapper Labs running on the Flow blockchain. This has really blown up in 2021, done $500 million worth of trading between people who own these video clips. So these are all little video clips of actual NBA players playing in games. And these are, you buy these in packs, and as they sort of come out, they're all held on the Flow blockchain, obviously kind of connected to your wallet. That's how they're secured, and each of them has a serial number. So there is scarcity, These ones are all legendary ones. They're a sort of typical sort of common, rare, epic, legendary sort of scarcity. So there's a lot of common ones out there. Probably tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of common ones out there. But legendary, I can't remember, about 100 or something like that. I think it depends exactly on the moment. But clearly, this is one has the lowest asking price is $250,000 actually. So this is actually it. So there's a whole bunch of these LeBron James dunk legendary ones. The one for the cheapest one is serial number 59, and it's for £250,000. Now, obviously, no one's bought that, but these moments are changing hands, changing wallets, we should say, at these hundreds of thousands of dollars. So people are playing this. An important thing to think about here is the developer, in this case Dapper Labs, has not set the price. So that when you bought these, you bought a pack of maybe $250. I think the most expensive pack they've done is about $999. So that was what the developer was getting from the consumer, from the user. The consumer was paying $1,000 as the most expensive one, and then getting a pack of I can't remember, kind of 5 or 3. Of these moments of different rarity values, and then this price here has come purely from the market. So the market has decided what it wants to set these prices at, and obviously if no one is buying at a certain price, then the price gets lowered. But we can just kind of get some idea of the velocity of what digital collecting means, particularly in this particular DApp, or kind of collectible product. So I think that kind of ties together kind of the idea of people who are just very into kind of collectible things now, and particularly I guess what blockchain has done is crystallized value around that, and obviously because it's a liquid marketplace that anyone in the world can become part of, then that makes it a lot more accessible and a lot more valuable than actually collecting physical items, which obviously are very difficult and very illiquid. So that's kind of the background. We can see here, so this kind of shows the it's not just NBA Top Shop, so that's by far and away the biggest, $550 million worth of trading, lifetime trading. When I took this screenshot a couple of days ago, but Cryptopunks, this very kind of the kind of OG NFT project they call it now, 10,000 of those. That's done 265 million. Hashmask, another art project, 49 million. So Rare, a kind of soccer-based player cards kind of system, where you kind of pick a sort of like a management style game, very light kind of style management game at the moment. $37 million, and you can see all the way down. We can see here how many owners. So it's NBA Top Shop. We have 441,000 people have own one of these moments. Slightly smaller. I mean, that's by far and away the biggest. Actually, Alien Worlds is 500,000 now. But these are still relatively small in terms of the owners, partly because these ones are quite expensive. So the starting price for Cryptopunks $30,000-$40,000 now. But we can kind of see that all I'm trying to say here is these collectible, these may not be great collectibles in many cases. These may sort of be made up sort of collectibles. I mean, Cryptopunks, I guess, it wasn't a very well thought through project. It was just like a project people messed around with a couple of years ago. But we can see human brains, in the blockchain at least, put massive value on these things. That's all I'm trying to say. So. People enjoy collecting things, and these are now digital items. Digital items allows us to have liquidity. Liquidity just means you can put something on sale, and someone is likely to buy it. And if they don't, you can drop the price until you do find someone to buy it. So these things are very, very dynamic now, and very lots of trading happens. Okay, so what does it mean when it comes to games? So this is a great quote from John Linden, who is the CEO of Mythical Games, who are doing Blanco's Block Party. Check it out if you haven't yet, in open beta on PC at the moment. Gamers want a bigger stake in their games. Blockchain items gives them ownership. So this is bringing what we've kind of looked at before together for games. So people want to collect stuff. Basically, everyone is sort of now a collector, or lots of people are collectors. And collectors collect things. That's what they do. So gamers obviously play games. But there is the collecting element of gamers now, which I think is pretty well developed. They just want a bigger stake in their game. So they love their game so much. They love the IP. Can they get more stuff? Can they buy little Funko characters? Can they buy T-shirts with their characters in? Can they, all this kind of stuff they spend their time doing. Blockchain gives them the thing they've never been able to do before, which is ownership of these items. So these items are little characters in the Blanco's Block Party game. But blockchain items allows them to secure those items and allows them to trade them. So you're kind of putting together that sort of dynamic that we've seen in collectibles into games. And games, I think, are much more interesting than collectibles because you're actually doing something with the things you're doing. You're not just, in the case of the NBA Top Shop game, sort of watching the video clips. Here are some blancos, so get the idea of what's going on here. And actually, we can kind of see these are very inspired by sort of Funkos. I mean, blancos, Funkos, same. You can kind of get the idea. And actually, these are ones designed by these two designers, John Paul Kaiser and James Groman. Okay, and when you have these blancos in a game, they look like little vinyl characters. They come in a little box, and you can stack them around, and you can if you want to take them out, you can open them, but then they probably would be seen as being less valuable. Like if you took an actual vinyl character out of their box, you would have dropped the value of them. So what's interesting here is when you have blockchain now, gamers do own their own in-game items. So they think they do at the moment, but now with the blockchain, they actually do own them, and they can trade them. And the important bit here is now the developer gets a share. So we're starting to see this kind of aligning of incentives, you could say, from a kind of economic point of view. The gamers now own their in-game items. They can sell them. Doesn't mean they're going to make a profit on them, but it means they can sell them if they want to. And the developer is going to get a share of that. Okay, let's see how this works. Very simple diagram here. At the moment, we have Epic Games, say, putting out some content in Fortnite. Player 1 goes, oh, that's lovely, and buys it. Player 2, player 3. So all the money is flowing from players to Epic Games. And Epic Games basically wants to have as many players as possible to try and sell this stuff to. This bit of content goes away, and another bit of content comes out, and player 1 goes, oh, that's great, I'll buy that again, and then blah blah blah. So it's the same thing happens. So basically, Epic Games is trying to get as many players as possible and try to kind of sell as much content as it possibly can, because that makes the biggest revenue flows. Blockchain games or collectibles are very different. So say that this is a Cryptokitty, but it could be any in-game NFT. So we have the first stage. So player 1 buys the item off the developer. So like we call that a primary sale. So that's kind of the same as what we saw with Fortnite in terms of something's available when a player buys it. But then what happens is player 2 comes along, but player 2 may buy something from the developer, but probably what will happen is player 2 actually will go, oh, that's really good, and player 1 will go, I don't want it anymore. And so the transaction happens. So player 2 now buys the item from player 1. The money flows mainly between player 1 and player 2. The developer will get a little bit, maybe 5%, something like that, maybe some sort of margin on the transaction. But we can see here, instead of player 2 buying the same item from the developer, you don't have two big lines here, you have a little line. And then we can obviously player 3, you can see how this sort of works out. So basically you have a very different sort of mechanic here. So that you have the first primary sale, that's fine, but then all the other players, the revenue flow is not this big arrow. It's not a big flow of money to the developer. It is the main flows between players, and a small kind of proportion of that goes down. So you can see actually, this looks terrible for developers. Instead of being able to sell lots of stuff to players and then make more stuff and sell more to players, actually the revenue is going between players, and they're only getting like a little percentage. So obviously, if you say this is 5%, then they're going to have to do 20 transactions are going to have to happen on this one to get the same amount as this amount of primary sale, assuming that the price stays the same. Of course, if the price starts going up, then actually this is going to go down quite quickly. And in fact, it could be already that the 5% they get from player 2 is actually because if the price has gone up 20 times, okay, that's a lot, but if the price went up 20 times, they'd be getting the same amount as their fee from the transaction that happened between player 1 and player 2. So there is a very different model. Developers will have to work out how they want to play that. But basically what they're trying to do here is they're trying to get these in-game items to be transacted as many times as possible. Now, obviously, this is a kind of there would be another case scenario where player 1 wouldn't want to sell their item, at least until the price was sufficient to let them do that. And obviously, player 3 might go, the price is too expensive now, I'll buy something direct from the developer. So there is a sort of mix and match. This is sort of a extreme example. But basically, what developers are going to have to really do is not be so sort of greedy in the first place, I think, in terms of getting these primary sales, but being really encouraging people to transact. And obviously pricing is the main reason why people do sell stuff. If the price goes up and they can make more money, then they are going to be selling them on. Obviously the price can't keep going up forever, because otherwise you end up with Cryptopunks, I suppose, where the things become so expensive you actually run out of players to buy them. Sort of happening there. Okay, so with blockchain games, developers only make money in the long term if gamers can trade their in-game items. So this is where the incentives have to be aligned, and the developers' kind of role then becomes not churning out loads of more content, but actually kind of making the game interesting for a long period of time, because it's this long-term transactional value that is going to make them money. So the games business now shifts from linear to circular. So linear just means the developers, the players are all giving their money to the developer. Developer puts it in their bank, goes, thanks very much. This time the money is kind of flowing between players mainly. Some of it flows back in secondary sales, in the kind of transactional margin that the developer gets from any transaction. Obviously, the developer can create new content. Have to be careful how to do that. But basically, the money is flowing between players. Now, obviously, that actually means if you have a good economy, that players start spending a lot more in that primary sales scenario. And you see that with NBA Top Shot, where at the moment there is such demand for these assets that you have to sit in a 2 hour queue just to get in another queue to buy some of these things. I mean, it's absolutely preposterous. And that's how things are going. That's a very popular project at the moment. I think as more NFT projects come out there, probably that will be seen as somewhat of a problem that can be overcome, I think. So I'm going to leave it there, actually. So the next part of the presentation, I went in and looked at Splinterlands, Uplands, and Axie Infinity as examples of good blockchain games. If you haven't played them, check them out. But I thought that is probably sufficient now, just to for us to think a little bit about how blockchain is solving some of the problems, particularly with these kind of the fact that people are selling this stuff already. It allows players to do that, and it allows developers to take a cut. It will have an impact on how these economies work, because these things, if it's on a blockchain, it's going to be there forever, and so you can't just keep kind of selling stuff to new players all the time. This stuff is going to sit in an ecosystem, in an economy. We have to think up new rules about how that works. So it's not like there's no challenges, but I think the opportunity is so immense. That's why I'm really excited about blockchain games, and that's why I keep banging on about it. So if you want to hear more about this sort of stuff, please subscribe to the channel. But thanks for watching, and see you again soon.